Well, hey everybody, you're tuned into Pacific Ocean Asia. Today is President's Day, February 19, 2018, a day off of public school. Friday I didn't feel so good. Saturday I woke up with aches and pains from neck all the way down, and I thought, am I getting another cold? And it's the flu this time. 3 days of feeling like a steamroller, earth mover, backhoe, dump truck, cement mixer run over me repeatedly. It's fun. Chills, then hot, chills, then hot. But that is to your advantage. I would have normally ran errands today, maybe got an emission test on my truck, got some things done. It is snowing, it is wintry weather, and I am not interested in roaming around today while I'm trying to recover from this pretty hefty kick. As many of you know, Pacific is a very healthy man, and this flu that has gone around the nation has actually taken healthy mothers' lives. I believe there was 37 deaths of women that were 30s, 40s. I don't believe I'm going to die, but you never know when your number's up. I wanted to update on a couple things. For those of you that followed me in the past, you may wonder what's been happening since I exited the YouTube scene. The man of the house here passed away. He passed away over a year ago. He was diagnosed in July 2016 with pancreatic cancer. It's really strange what started happening here. The family dog died in the spring. The lady's sister, who was in a nursing home, passed away shortly thereafter that. And the dog is an interesting story. The dog was a cute little dog named Girly. And she would come in this back room. I'd open the doggy door over here and let her out. Well, one morning I'm getting ready for work. I'm eating my breakfast, and I'm like, Girly hasn't come back. So I went outside into the yard, into the dark of the wee hours of the morning. Like, where did the dog go? The dog had fallen in the pool with no water in it and couldn't get out. And I went down in there and I saw her with the flashlight. I went to get her. She was so gun-shy and skittery that her fall had spooked her. She was never the same after that. And one morning, the dog went out the dog door. I went to leave for work. I looked for the dog. I didn't see her. I left the door open. I get done with my morning routes, and the man of the house called and left a voicemail and said, Pacific, have you seen Girly? I can't find her anywhere. And I called him immediately. I said, she went out this morning. I checked the yard. I didn't find her. And we believe that she somehow wandered off, or maybe a coyote had gotten her. She was weak and losing her eyesight and her hearing. Pretty sad. It was a lovable dog. I always called her Dirty Mutt because she was a dirty pig of a dog, but she was a good family dog. Only barked when you needed it, when there was somebody banging on the door or somebody messing around in the yard or something. When the man took ill with the cancer, I was devastated. I grew to love him, and people had made a comment about some of the very public comments I had made about the conditions of living here, and my video channel's always been different because I talk about what I'm going through at the time. I talk about people, and somebody says, wow, he lives there, and he puts down blah, blah, blah. No matter who or where you live, when you're with other people, there's going to be growing pains and stretching. This is no exception. Many people made the comment that I'm a freeloader and all this. The family has asked me to stay here and maintain the property until further notice. The family said, now that our dad's gone, are you going to leave or are you going to stay? And I said, I will stay. Not going to tell you all of the details because, as you know, there's too many psychopaths on the internet. But the passing of the man of the house was a shock to every one of us. None of us thought it would happen. And when he passed, it was a sad day indeed. It was sudden, it was quick. November 1st, gone. In the time that all this transpired, the dog died, the lady's sister died. We had a cotton storm, the worst I've ever seen. We have cottonwoods in the yard. 6 big grandpa cottonwoods, 4 to 5 feet in diameter, over 100 feet tall, over 100 years old. I say that because I knew they were over 100. We had a tree guy come out. In July of 2016, I went to sleep. 11:15, I was awoke by my bedroom floor. Just this loud noise and the floor vibrate. I'm like, what was that? You know, you wake up in the dark and you're thinking, okay, I've never heard that one before. I get up and make sure she's in her room, he's in his. Did somebody fall? I go through the house with the flashlight and I go, okay, I don't know what that was. Maybe it was a car crash. We're on a very busy state highway here. Very busy. Reckless, excessive speeding drivers. There are more accidents out here than you can shake a stick at, right in front of the house. And I'll be in the backyard mowing. I'll turn off the mower and I'll hear, and I go right out the front yard. Yep. Car flipped upside down, SUV on its side. Yep. Quality Colorado drivers. Make sure everybody's okay. Watch the scene for a few minutes. Police arrive. I'm back in the yard doing my thing. The next day I come home from work and the man of the house smiled at me and said, God decided to prune some of the trees last night. I said, huh? And he goes, go look out the back windows in the patio. As I walk into the living room, I look and I see big leafy green boughs covering the entire patio. And I'm like, oh my gosh. One arm of a cottonwood had fallen in the dead of night, no wind. The squirrels and the woodpeckers have gotten in there, plus some sort of disease, and rotted this thing. And this sucker came down and it smashed and destroyed all the patio furniture, smashed the brickwork around the pool, crushed the bridge that goes over the little ditch and creek, and it had flooded the ditch, backing up into the backyard. Because I was at work, he had to call a guy to come over and cut it up and get it out of the way of the ditch so the ditch could flow. And then we hired another guy with a big chainsaw because you needed a big one. This was a big limb. You had to get one of those 4-foot blade chainsaws and cut it up. And the cotton from these cottonwoods had covered the yard. It looked like Pillsbury dough had exploded on everything. A half an inch thick, all over the ground, all over everything. And when you tried to rake it, this stuff was extremely heavy. It coated all the trees. It hung out in strands and strings, and the sun would shine through there, and you're like, yuck. And I couldn't help but thinking, the old man's leaving this world, and all hell's breaking loose on the property here. Christmas, after he passed away. 1 month later, I'm sitting here. All the family decided not to have Christmas here because of his death and how there was just too much emotion about the house here. They went to the Springs. They invited me. I said, no, I'm going to be alone and keep an eye on the house. I like to be alone on Christmas Day and kind of get away from everybody. That's specific. I'm not a big Christmas fan myself. I like to just enjoy the solitude. The winds at 10:30 in the morning came out of nowhere. Winds like I'd never seen them here. 70-mile-an-hour sustained. The fence that the man and I had worked, 220 feet of fence that we put up, I heard noises and bangs and crashes. It had blown the ladder up against the house and threw it across the yard. Aluminum ladder, just poof. There's canvas that comes down over the skylight, the green room, as we call it, for the plants. It had ripped those off and threw them across the yard. It knocked over a gazebo and tore it up. It blew over the ivy trellis and smashed it. And then I go to the fence that the man and I had spent so much time working on, and we were so proud of our accomplishment. I come out and the fence is going like this in the wind. Broken. The post broken. The boards flying off. And I'm like, you know, God, what else is going to happen here? The wind blew the front fence in front of the property, blew a section of that, just literally flung it. Tree branches everywhere. And then I got online and started studying high winds hit Lakewood. I went to my bank the next day. There was a complete tree snapped off at the top, blown how many feet across the parking lot. They came off the foothills, and these winds were hellacious. The daughter of the family said, boy, ever since Dad got diagnosed with the cancer and then he died, we're getting hit with all the plagues. May of 2017, I'm driving my school bus. I'm at West High School. And our dispatcher, our boss, gets on the radio and says, all drivers, we are looking for a severe hailstorm to hit. If you have kids on the bus, do not let them out. Use caution. Proceed with caution. If it is hailing or lightning, do not let your students off of the bus. And I stood in front of West High School looking at the 4-story front of the building, and I saw nothing but black over the back of the building, which would be my direction, Lakewood. And I watched, and I'm like, that looks nasty. I'm talking to another driver. Then I hear my two-way radio go off. So-and-so to dispatch. I'm over at Colfax Elementary, and I've got golf ball size hail hitting my bus, and I can hear it through the radio. No joke. And I'm thinking, I said out loud, there was like 7 of us drivers outside West, and I said, oh my gosh, you guys, did you hear that? Somebody said, no, what? I said, somebody's on the radio. I mentioned his name. I said, he's getting golf ball sized hail at Colfax Elementary. I said, all of our personal vehicles are wide open in the employee parking lot. And one woman yells, SHIT, and she goes, I just had it painted. I said, yeah, I have a 23-year-old truck. It'll be destroyed. One woman that I work with who is not all there started yelling, yes, the apocalypse, bring it on, God. I looked at her and thought, what is she on? That storm only sent grape-sized hail. My topper on my truck is pinged all over it. The truck itself, no pings. I'm at West High School. The hail came down in a torrent, covering the ground like snow. Rivers of water, jammed by dammed up ice balls, is flowing down the streets. A couple kids dared to run out of the school when it started, and as they sat on the bus, they started to get concerned. I said, you're fine. Just keep your head away from the windows. If the hail gets bigger, you're fine. Finally get all the kids on the bus after the hail stops. I'm driving through town, and you see trees shredded of all their leaves, ice blocked up in all the storm drains, and I'm driving down streets with a foot of water. I'm driving down streets where I'm sliding as I turn the corner on balls of ice. And then as I start driving home after my afternoon routes to Lakewood, I'm like, oh no. Lakewood got the hardest hit. We had golf ball sized hail here at the house, and just a mile up the road at the infamous Colorado Mills Mall, they got baseball sized. Baseball size busted every skylight in the mall, sending in torrents of rain and ice, which flooded all the beautiful hardwood floors, flooded all the stores, shutting down the mall from May all the way to Thanksgiving of 2017. The car dealerships all around the mall, the vehicles were not just pinged, they were destroyed. Windows broken, rain poured into the interiors. All the cars were considered a total washout. The Porsche dealership down the street, total carnage. The Audis, the Porsches, just trashed. as I come down the street here and I look, and we had just rented the apartment next door that we had remodeled when the man was still alive. We had remodeled, and then he died, and myself and the son-in-law and the granddaughters and family all pitched in to get it done. It turned out very nice. We got it rented, and I see the guy up on the roof tarping one of the skylights, and I look, I'm like, oh crap, every single skylight's been destroyed. I get on the roof of this house, and there's golf balls everywhere, all over the yard, all over the roof. Every skylight, including the brand new one that we had put on. We had a new roof put on before this hailstorm hit. That rubberized roofing, and we had a new skylight that was better than what was there. It was insulated. It broke through the first layer. I thought, oh my gosh, that skylight was $800, and it's gone. All the skylights on the property were trashed. Then I get up and I start looking closer. The bird bath, flower pots, all around the yard, broken stuff. The patio table with glass on it, shattered. And the trees shredded of all their leaves, ice everywhere. We didn't get the roof fixed until October of 2017. The roofers all over the metro were so booked that even in January of this year, I could still hear nail guns in the neighborhood. And I could see every roof all the way around us getting repaired and replaced. I didn't think our roof had gotten damaged. I saw impacts in the rubberized roofing, but it wasn't compromised. But when we had the insurance agent come out, I thought we needed to replace the skylights. The insurance agents from the East Coast came out. I walked up on the roof with them, and he says, no, this roof is trashed, look. And then he showed me impacts all over the brand new roofing. The whole roof needed to be replaced except the rubberized. All the skylights replaced. The skylights on the shed of the rental property. It was unbelievable. And it just seemed like one thing after another was hitting the property here. The cost of that hailstorm, it was the worst one Lakewood had ever seen, with the biggest hail it had ever supposedly recorded, was into the multiple billions of dollars. Virtually every roof in Lakewood, Wheat Ridge, and Golden was destroyed. My boss said she had vinyl siding. It destroyed the vinyl siding, destroyed the roof, and broke out all of the windows facing the direction of the hail. We lost 2 windows on the west-facing side of the house. It took big, literally dents out of the wooden door. It was unbelievable. Ironically, as I pulled up to the driveway, I noticed everybody's vehicle was obliterated, windshields cracked, big golf ball pings all over the metal. Excuse me. And all I could think of, if my truck had been here and not at work, it would have been destroyed. No insurance to cover it. Because I was at work, I only took grape-sized, didn't lose my glass, didn't lose the truck body, but the topper got really pinged up. It was interesting driving around after that and seeing all of the damage. But I wanted to talk about something. A gentleman texted me last night and said I was thinking of a good topic for your next video. How come sometimes God doesn't answer prayer? And I thought that's a great topic. Because preachers will tell us he does answer prayer. Sometimes it's yes, no, maybe. I don't really like that answer. That's just cheesy to me. You know, the Bible says that God gives us the desires of our hearts. But the fact is, when we talk about the desires of our hearts, we have to realize something. What are our desires? If the truth be known, sometimes we desire things that are contrary to what is written in the good book. Sometimes we desire things that are sinful. Sometimes we desire something that isn't necessarily sinful, but because God sees the full picture that we don't see, God says, no, Pacific, that's not for you. Many people are still convinced that Pacific should go live in Asia. That door has not been opened. I don't expect it to be opened, and I am consigned to living in the United States of America. People say you're going to always live in Colorado. Not for long. My days are numbered here. She has health problems. She's getting older, and her days on this world are not going to be years and years. I have had the job as caretaker of both the properties. I've had the job as helping her when she's taken sick, giving her her food, etc., etc. She's doing fine. It's been a very horrible year in Colorado for colds, illnesses, because our weather, we have not had a deep freeze. We've had up and down 60s for 2 days, then snow and ice, and it's jacking with everybody, and the dryness here doesn't help. One of the things that I've been doing is going to one of the local rec centers for $6 a day, pool, steam room, sauna, and hot tub. I have created quite a social life down there with guys and girls just chatting, hanging out. And once again, I noticed that the ladies that are the friendliest to me are all Asian descent. And it's been entertaining. Haven't landed a date. Most of them were married, but I have my rec center junkie friends, and it's been fun. People say, where are you going to go? I will not disclose that at this time, except to say that I've had an offer from a friend of mine on the East Coast who bought a condo right on the Atlantic and said, I've got extra rooms, and you are more than welcome to live here. It is not a romantic interest. She is a very good friend. She looks like she could be my sister. She's a redheaded woman that I met in Pueblo. You remember I had a video of Pueblo. She was the one Craigslist date that I met that we have still maintained a solid, intact friendship. And I thought East Coast might be fun. And the place that she lives, it's a beautiful town. So we'll see. Time will tell. As you know, before, my eyesight is right on the edge. My commercial license physical comes up again this March, and I always live with the reality that I might not pass that. That doesn't mean I lose my license. It just means that CDL, no more. And that would be disturbing because the money for CDL is going to be more than not having a CDL. But I've been saving, and my goal is to hopefully buy a house. And many of you have been curious about my son, and all I'm going to say on that is he turned 18, and I separated all ties with his mother and made it very clear to her, do not contact me anymore. And I've made it clear to my son, if you want a relationship, my door is open, but I'm not your ATM and I'm not your money. He has stopped breaking the law. He had a job for 6 months and quit it because he didn't feel he made enough. I don't know what he's doing now. I don't come knocking. And sometimes you just have to let some things go because of all of the damage and spin-off of that whole mess, as many of you know, was just going nowhere. The good news is for the first time in all these years, I finally feel a sense of freedom and peace that now she has no more her clutches on me to cause problems, the ex, that is. The last time I went on a date was 2+ years ago with the lady in Puerto Rico, or the one in Huntsville, Alabama. Other than going on an outing with lady friends, most of them older than me, a Hispanic woman that I would take dating who's in her 60s, not dating, but to go see a movie or eat dinner, and various others, I have had no romance whatsoever. Does God answer every prayer? No. You want me to answer why? Excuse me. God has his reasons. Too many Christians today, and this has been a problem for many years, they treat God as a vending machine. If you read the Bible enough, you go to church enough, if you pray enough, if you do enough good actions and try to be holy living, that God is obligated to give you what you want. One of the things in the Lord's prayers, it says, not my will be done, but thine. And we forget that. A lot of times we have interests that are not necessarily sinful, but they're things that we erect in our own mind that in the long run could cause damage to our walk or our relationship with God. Going back to the woman I married in Hong Kong, I prayed and prayed and prayed. And one could say, gee, well, what happened with that? You all know. Did God bless that relationship? Did God open that door? You have to understand that God allows things. There's what's called his permissive will. And there's his explicit will. I know for a fact that if the Bible tells me don't do this and I'm doing this, and we have a funny way of doing things in America. A man wants to move in with his girlfriend and they're both Christians, and they can rationalize and justify it all they want. But according to the book, you're not supposed to have sex before marriage. And let's be honest, many of us have. I'm not talking as one who is self-righteous. I have done my fair share of multiple sinning. Not proud of that. As I get older, I don't know too many people that say, I'm so happy I lost my virginity. I have a friend in Missouri who's in his mid-30s who has told me he has been a virgin his whole life. And I said, good for you. And people will make fun of him in this American culture for that. Man, there must be something wrong with you. Nope. He lives in a part of Missouri that is literally the bottom of the bucket for decent females. I said, don't ever look down on yourself for being a virgin. Some of us, because we did what we weren't supposed to, open the door for other problems. If we are not following the things that God wants us to do, the things that are written and expressed in his word, don't expect him to make it clear the way on other issues that are not addressed in the Bible. And that goes for me. If I'm living in sin in one area, but then I go to him and beg him to give me this and this and this, what audacity I have. What we're talking about is there is the will of God that can be known in Scripture. What we don't know is where do you live, what job, do you buy the house, do you get a mortgage, do you buy the new car or the used car. Those are not spelled out in the Bible. Those are the things you want to go to God and say, Lord, I need wisdom on this. But as far as answered prayer, I've noticed that our prayers tend to reflect an American culture more than a biblical culture. I knew a young couple years ago that got deeply in debt for way more house than they needed for their 2 young children. And they asked the church to pray that the mortgage get approved, and he was saying how stiff it was going to be, and he got it approved and came back to the church and said, well, God answered our prayer. I'm going to say something right now, and this is not going to be popular. I just don't believe that. Getting a mortgage approved may or may not have been done by God. Because if that's the case, then every person, including an atheist, say, well, I got my mortgage approved. God must have done that, even though I don't believe he exists. That's ludicrous. There are things that happen just because. If I run a red light, I could get hit by somebody, or I could get lucky and miss all the cars. But you're playing Russian roulette. In the case of boy meets girl, or girl meets boy, we allow our emotions to drive our logic. Emotionally driven logic. And when we do this, we always reap the fruit of trouble. I have nobody to blame about the relationship with the girl in Hong Kong but myself. I was warned by my uncle, by others. I was made aware by my own observation of her that something wasn't right. that was a time in my life where I ran on emotionally driven logic. Brown skin, black hair, Hong Kong, they're better than American girls. And I'm here to report to you that not all Asians are better than American women. There are some American women who have a problem just like they do here. They want money, they want a visa, they want to take advantage of what the man can give them while giving nothing in return. In other words, there's bad women and good women all over the globe. There are some good American women. Most good American women are already taken, and usually in a very happy marriage. When you get up into my age, at 52, I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but it's kind of like after the county fair, the last day of the county fair. Watermelon rinds, corn cobs, smashed cups, litter and trash and leftovers everywhere. And as the people are filing out and the rides close down and the trucks back up to dismantle everything, when you're 52, all you got left is all the junk on the ground. And that's not a nice thing to say, but it is my observation that when you get up into my age, the chances of finding a 40, 50-year-old, 60-year-old, well-adjusted female who's just beautiful and perfect and out there available, we're talking that much of a percent. Because if she is a good woman and a good-looking woman, she will be taken. Instead, what you're going to get is people like myself, divorced, went through the spin cycle of life, went through the re-rinse cycle of life, and then you add layer upon layer upon layer of dysfunction in each and every one of us as individuals, and you try to bring two people that are our age together, the tolerance level is not there. The tolerance level, the forgiveness and the grace isn't there. It's like, I am not putting up with this. My view has shifted somewhat that though I like the idea of having a companion for life, in the U.S., based on what I've seen, my goal now is to buy me a house that's cozy and quiet and safe. A place that I can say, this is Pacific's place. And if I don't have a wife, I don't have a wife. At least when I shut my door every night, I have peace. Many of you might ask, what happened to Maharani? Never heard from her again, and I didn't try. We will never, ever visit that kind of a situation again. Andrew Drescher, the 22-year-old guy in the military. He was not a finance person in Hong Kong. He went over there on a trip to make his Pacific I Win video. You will notice his channel is gone. I want to personally take the time to thank, his name will be unmentioned, a gentleman in of all places who sent me a personal letter. Did not know this guy at all. He was from Eastern Washington State. I have followed your channel. I saw what this guy did to you. And be it known to you, Pacific, I'm going to find out who this is. I already have some leads. I don't agree with somebody censoring somebody and doing what they did. You pulled your channel. You probably don't even care anymore. He left me his number. I called him immediately. I said, I don't know who you are, but if you could get him, more power to you. We've had many conversations. The guy is a college student, and he's taking studies on computer forensics, specifically to deal with hackers and harassers and bullies on the internet. And this happened because it happened to him. People were ganging up on him and doing all kinds of horrid things. Peppermint tea with honey. Feels so good on a sore throat. He located him. He sent me a link to his Facebook page, and I said, are you sure? He says, Come on, Pacific. Look at his picture. Shows a picture of him squat down on the hood of a Hummer. He's got a cold sore. And I look closely at his face. It's very hard to tell in the Pacific I Win video because he's got these cheap dollar store sunglasses on. And he looks like a doughboy. But as I studied side by side the pictures, I said, that's him. His cover photo on Facebook was all the little plastic statuary of Legatus Lanius and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, you got our man. He's out of Alexandria, Virginia, stationed. This friend of mine found the base, wrote the powers that be with an email complete with attachments and said, you need to know that this guy has been online harassing somebody and he's in the United States military and he's been attacking this guy for his freedom of speech, etc., etc. He also contacted Google by phone. He said it was very hard to get through, and he talked to a woman and went into graphic detail. This guy dogged this guy. He sent death threats to his house. He doxed him, everything. The lady said, it will take some time, but let me look into this. And it did. I think another 6 months went by. Suddenly, I looked up Pacific Ocean Asia. I saw Legatus. I clicked on it. This channel's been removed due to violations. I called my friend in Eastern Washington. I said, bingo. Let me make it very clear. We're not going to make videos going on about Legatus, Andrew Drescher. The only thing I'm going to say is that a man who hid like he did, didn't show his face like he did, wear dollar store sunglasses, and tell me I had no right to talk about these people, this people, while he was sending me death threats. The hypocrisy of the individual was startling. I still have the 2-hour phone conversation, which I'm not going to repost, because Pacific is in fine fashion complete with profanity. I was so sick of this guy, I went off on him. Andrew Drescher told me in that phone call, you stop making videos, you shut down your channel, I'll leave you alone. I made a deal. You got a deal. Pacific, why would you give in to that? Many reasons, which I will not get into here. Security issues. Safety issues. When I didn't know who my enemy was, I cannot even begin to tell you that suddenly my own property became, the property I live on became a nightmare. This is a yard that is a jungle. It's over an acre. It's an acre between the two properties, dense growth. When I didn't know who this was, I didn't know if this was some Coloradan, blah, blah, blah. When he posted a video on his channel that censored out his conversation with me on the phone and showed only me talking, and he writes in the comments, the description, Pacific and I end up becoming friends. I had enough. I came back under Ramon Sawaya, and I posted that video of me talking to him. Many of you wrote back and said, this guy's clearly a psycho. He had asked for nude pictures of Maharani, naked pictures of myself. I said I would never send you naked pictures of Maharani, and I don't have naked pictures of myself, and no way in hell would I send you that. On his Facebook page, he's admitted bisexual. This is the same man who on the docs page, what you don't know about Encyclopedia Dramatica is there were several others involved in that, and they started telling him, you're going too far with this. They were all mean-spirited, but they all said, okay, you've attacked Pacific, you've made your point, now knock it off. And he posted the snippets from my videos saying he wears anal beads, and on it goes. He also made a big paragraph about how I'm a homosexual. Let me make it clear to my audience, not homosexual. Pacific had admitted curiosities. Pacific had admitted allowing certain things in my life. But I like women. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to get into graphic detail. It's not warranted. And while Andrew was attacking me like there's no tomorrow, to find out he's bisexual and there is no girlfriend, and you start looking at his page, and then you see his parents on there saying, "We're so proud of you." And I called my friend. I said, "See if you can contact his family and tell them how proud they should be of him for his behavior on the internet." That a man can be in the United States military and turn on a fellow American for simply having a YouTube channel that was unlike any other. Me just being honest. And in the last few years, I finally realized something that was an eye-opener to me. Honesty will get you into trouble in the United States of America. We live in a culture that is by and at large superficial. They don't want to get into heavy. We're an entertainment-saturated culture. We're a beer-drinking, pot-smoking, drug-addicted, gambling-addicted, materialistic-addicted culture. None of those are healthy for the survival of any community. They're all symptomatic of a society that is fragmented. People no longer bond to each other. Now we find something to bond with. Materialism. A beer bottle. A girl. A guy. You put in the blanks what you wish. That as our society becomes obsessed with social media, we're socializing less and less face to face. I was angry when it dawned on me that Andrew Drescher was in the United States military and doing this. It was totally unacceptable. Had I been his CO, I would have called him in the office and I would have pulled open the computer. I said, "What is this crap? You're in the United States military to defend our country and our Constitution, and you're attacking this guy who's got his own freedom of speech and views, and you're dogging him and threatening him? We're going to give you a dishonorable discharge, and you're going to go to jail, buddy." We live in different times. Justice is not always meted out. For now, it's quiet. There were others. Hagbird Celine. His channel has taken off tremendously. I don't watch it. I'm not interested in him. Hagbird Celine never came out with one intellectual video saying why he disagreed with me. It was just cussing and laughing, the looks, me, my style. And to be fair, I'm not going to judge Hagbird's channel. I don't want to watch him. I don't want to listen to him. If he has 10 million views and subscriptions, more power to him. I'm going to continue to be Pacific. And if that's offensive to some, click the red X and move on. Don't waste your time taking channels attacking my looks. I hope you're not interested in me, Hagbird. You're not my type. I like girls, thank you. So if you want to attack my looks and you're some closet gay boy, you'll have to deal with that. The plethora of comments, names unmentioned, that dotted my channel made me realize the comment section really has turned into a free-for-all. It's where people could hide behind a keyboard and be a keyboard warrior and just be so Neanderthal that, most of these comments are just not worth even printing. And that's why my channel remains all comments disabled. No contact is the best way to run your channel. Because unfortunately, we have too many immature babies out there that abuse the wonderful freedom that the internet affords. And for the people that made some of the rudest, demeaning, horrible comments, not one of them had a channel. Not one of them had a video forum where they showed their face and were honest. And I look back and I did some self-analysis. Did I do wrong with Maharani? Did I do wrong with my channel? Yeah, there were some things that I probably shouldn't have posted. But for me being me, no apologies. Me being honest about life in general and people that I come into contact with, by no means apologetic. I have nothing to apologize for. I knew Andrew Drescher was some 20-something-year-old millennial. The millennials today are a whole different story. They're not anything like what my generation was. I grew up believing you don't mouth off to people, even behind a keyboard. You just don't do that stuff. You agree to disagree. You have discourse. You have dialogue. But you don't make threats, and you don't hide. And this gentleman in Eastern Washington wrote me, and he said, I saw further comments by this legatist saying, believe me, if I met Pacific face-to-face, it'd be no contest. The arrogance of this doughboy punk was off the chain. That a guy would take on a 52-year-old man because of my freedom of speech and the free exercise thereof. What is this guy's problem? Disagree with me, laugh at what I have to say, but to keep dogging me and then repost my videos. This is one of our soldiers. So in that case, I don't support that troop. Heck no. I don't mean to be rude, but if he died in battle, good. C'est la vie. Sounds like a guy who'd do a better job working for ISIS than the United States government. I wanted to update you. I thought you'd want to know. It's not that I'm feeling ballsy. It's not that I think I'm invincible. None of us are. I make my mistakes. I even broadcast my mistakes. But the good thing is, we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot. So, Pacific, what is your view of American women now? Would you date an American woman? Absolutely. You know, I've kind of mellowed out a little bit. I know what I know about feminism. If I detect the feminism and the man-hating and the, women who want to dominate over us and tell us we can't be men, I stay away from those kind. I still prefer Asians for many reasons. But now I'm more or less focused on where are you going to move? Where can you buy a house you can afford? Colorado's not home. It never has been, never will be. It's just a place. It's just a train depot, and I'm waiting for my train. But you might ask, well, do you feel like you had victory by being here with your son? Not at all. What can be stated is that if I had not been here, his auto accident that he got involved with, the price of that was $105,000. And if I wasn't here, that whole bill would have been put on my ex, and a lien would have been put against her home. Because I was here, and because my income, I don't qualify for it, ironically, but under my income, my son qualified for Medicaid. It went retroactive. The accident was on the 18th of January. I think I applied for it the 23rd of January, 2015 when this happened. And they instated it where it went back to the first of the year. To tell you how insurance works, and to tell you how much the hospitals are ripping off the public, Medicaid paid $13,000 of it, because I went and got an attorney right away. When all this came down, I thought, boy, I better get a lawyer, or I'm going to be in deep doo-doo. His mother dropped his health insurance in October of 2014. Not a wise move. That was against the divorce decree, which stated that she would hold the health insurance, and if something changed where she couldn't do it, then it would go to my employer, but if I didn't have it, then we both had to meet halfway and pay. In the settlement, my son got so much money, and a portion of that was taken to pay back Medicaid. So I went to my attorney. I said, okay, the bill for the hospital in Denver was $105,000. Medicaid only paid $13,000. Who pays the rest? He says, nobody, Pacific. They write it off. I said, so does that mean that's how much they're marking stuff up? And he says, but pretty much. He was in the hospital for 5 days. And when you're talking a hospital, they're going to charge you $50 for one aspirin tablet. The service that my son got by the medical professional was top of the line. I failed to take the time to write the hospital and say, I want to thank you. I was so disgusted with all that happened that I just didn't do it. Pacific had lived with a very strong sense of, oh my gosh, what wrong is going to happen now? My son bought an old Ford truck. So not all hope is lost. In some strange ways, he still tries to follow in Daddy's footsteps. I love my son. He is my boy. I don't see him, but that's his choice. When I asked over and over, why was I to come back to Colorado? I've had a job for 5+ years. Denver Public Schools, driving a bus. I've had a job 4 years, working for International Truck and Engine Corporation during the summer. And even lately, they're so busy, they've called me, when you're done with your morning routes, come over here for 2 hours, Commerce City, and help us. And they're paying me cash. They're so swamped. I've had a job here for 6 years as a caretaker. I have acquired some outstanding references through all this. And my presence here, to quote the family members, 3 sons, 1 daughter, 1 in Idaho, 1 in New Jersey, and 1 in the Springs. 2 of them school teachers, 1 the head of a boys' troubled youth ranch in Idaho. They have all told me, you have been a godsend. We don't have to worry about anything. You don't steal. You've kept things going. You've taken care of everything. I can't even begin to tell you that for the last, how long I've been cleaning out the side yard and cleaning up the property of all the stuff that the old man kept and saved and kept and saved. Stuff that's no good. I made many trips to the metal recycling and was able to get money back to the lady for that. When he passed, I came in about 2 weeks before he went. He was still very lucid, and he was bedridden. I said, I know this may sound strange, but I love you. And I never wanted to accept that you were going to go out this way. He was convinced that God had told him he would live to be 100. He was 88. He looked at me, and he is not a demonstrative man. He's not a touchy-feely. He says, I know you love me, Michael. I want to thank you for all your service here and for keeping things going. And I know it's not easy to deal with my wife, but try not to get into when she comes on and starts hammering away. Just try not to argue with her. A week before he passed, they had some social services nurses here, and he ordered everybody out of the room. He was so tired of the canned fake. And the nurse came in and said, "Michael wants to see you. Is that okay?" And he shocked me. I was outside the door. He says, "Michael could come in here anytime he wants. The rest of you all, just please get out." I was like, oh boy, here we go. I'm not going to tell you what they were, but he gave me 3 final directives of what he wanted me to do once he passed. It was then that I knew. He's finally accepted the fact that God says, "You're done." He was here to the very last day. It was a Monday. Sunday, all the relatives that came down from Idaho, and there was family here the whole time. They left. Monday came. The daughter came from East Denver. The mother and her talked, and the daughter and the wife of the man said, "We can't do this anymore." They sent him to hospice. So Monday evening, I assisted with the medics that came and hospital gurney bedded him out to the ambulance, and that was the last time I saw Jim. He was incognizant. I said, "Goodbye, Jim. I love you." The next morning, I got a text from the daughter. I had just got done with my AM routes. It said, "Dad passed away 6:30 this morning." He was not an easy man to get along with. He had views that were way out there. But I loved him as a human being. Not with a faggy love. People, you have to clarify that. I saw the way he tried to please his wife for 65 years. And that was a tall order for him. I saw the way that even though she was not always sweet and congenial to him, even though he gave her everything, including this property, and worked and did all for her, he never believed in cutting and running a divorce. He served in the Korean War. He flew fighter planes. I think actually he was a gunner. He grew up in Nebraska. He used to tell me stories in Nebraska and driving the old 40s cars with no chains. He says, "Yeah, you go down the hill, and you go up the top, and you start to slide. You back her up, and you hit it again, and you hope that finally you make it to the top." He loved basketball. He loved to go down to the YMCA and shoot hoops. As I got to know him, I started to realize, yeah, he's different. But there were certain things about his life that I admired. He liked to putz in the garage. He was always doing something. He always taught himself. He was not good at car maintenance at all. I found that out after he passed. We sold one pickup for $500. It smoked like a stinking pig. We sold it to some Mexicans that paid cash and drove it off into the sunset, smoking all the way down the state highway, sending a big blue cloud everywhere. The next truck we sold, I had to go get an oil change because when I got in it, there was no oil, no radiator fluid, everything. I'm like, how come the motor hasn't blown in this thing? But everything on this house he did himself. He taught himself. He figured it out. And when I told him what happened with my YouTube channel, I went to him and said, "I'm being harassed," and I shut it down. He's sitting at his desk back there, and he kind of rocks back in his chair, and he says, "Why'd you shut it down?" He says, "Get back on there and give that guy hell." I said, "No, he's got the address to the property." "Oh, really? How'd he do that?" I said, "Well, he looked up Jefferson County records and found it." And he chuckled. This little old man chuckled. "Really? Sounds like the guy has problems with freedom of speech." He wasn't moved by it. I was. I had a new respect for him. I said, well, I say things that aren't very conventional. In fact, he even asked me, how do I start a YouTube channel? Because he wanted to talk about some of his beliefs, and I told him how he could do it. He never ended up doing it. I thought, can you imagine an 80-something-year-old man getting on YouTube? They know I'm back here doing videos. And after Facebook got shut down, I said, guess what? It's time to revive Pacific Ocean Asia. All these sites that came out, the sinking of Pacific Ocean liner, superliner, I just thought, oh, whatever. Let me make it clear that I voluntarily shut it down. And I voluntarily came back. And that was my plan. There was a time when I said, nah, I'm done. But as more time went by, I thought, no. What I have to say needs to be heard too. And that's where I stand. So sometimes, back to the answer, Mr. Brian, that you asked me about unanswered prayers, sometimes God does things that we don't really realize. That it would have been a happy ending if, had I come back here, I would have had this vibrant, rich relationship with my son, father and son. Oh, the 66 Ford? Oh my gosh. White Elefante. I put too much into it. I put Flowmasters, new brakes, new shocks, new bearings, everything. New tires. Then the engine started running rough. Found out there was something wrong with the valves. Then I got a quote for the body just to get rid of the rust and repair places where the metal had eaten through. $15,000 for that. That did not include the paint job, interior, or the seats, or the seat, reupholster, any of that. And I finally made a decision to cut my losses. I sold the truck for $1,500, which is way less than the total cost put into the thing. And a gentleman bought it, and I drove it to his house. He gave me the cash, and I was done. I miss a truck of that vintage. Maybe someday. Auto repair and auto restoration has really climbed higher than I ever realized. But my purpose for being here has become more clear. The influence I've had on the lives of children through the Denver school system had been huge. So huge that we had an in-service a year ago, and I didn't recognize the guy. A high school student who had graduated gave one of the speeches during one of the time segments of our in-service. He had an afro, so I didn't recognize him. And he got up at the podium and he said, you may not realize how much influence you have as bus drivers, but you do. After he was done speaking, he went to somebody in HR who was there, and he was talking about me. He said, yeah, this guy wears a chain around his neck, he wears wigs. I asked him about bus driving and driving Ballarat up in the mountains, and he talked to me. He treated me like a human being. He said, I had a bad relationship with my father, and here's one guy who's reaching out to me, a white guy no less. HR came up to me 2 weeks later and said, do you remember the gentleman with the afro that spoke? I said, yeah. I said, I didn't know who he was. They said he went to this high school that you used to pick up at. And he said you always had pleasant conversation with him, and he said that you had made a difference in his life. I said, what? He's gone on to be an activist for justice. A black student. Now, I don't agree with all of his views. But isn't that what all of us are supposed to be about? Making a difference in somebody's life. I've had to cover routes. We've had a huge driver shortage in Denver. They're failing drug tests. They're failing physicals. The physical requirements for CDL drivers has changed. If you're a big fat trucker, you're going to lose your job. BMI, body mass index, look it up. It's terrible what they're doing. They're clamping down on every little thing. They're claiming that big overweight people get sleep apnea. Well, I got news for you. I know skinny people that don't get a good night's sleep and fall asleep at the wheel. Check all the car accidents caused by sleeping drivers. But one semi-truck goes off the road because a driver, takes out a family of children, and that's a big deal. Never mind the plethora of accidents of sleepy drivers that fall asleep in front of their Prius or whatever and kill somebody. That's never even mentioned. But I've had to cover routes. They pulled my afternoon route and given it to a supervisor because the route gets done early, and they're giving me routes that run later. And I pull up to these schools. Oh, we got Pacific. He's the cool bus driver. We like him. Now, before you start to make a speculation, these are black kids. These are Asian kids. These are Hispanic kids. Saying they're happy to see me. He's not a jerk like some bus drivers. He's good to us. Taking care of the family's needs here, keeping the property maintained, giving her independent living. We always seem to think about quantification or production output. No, it didn't go so great for my son and I. But I have to stop and analyze. If I wasn't here, things would have been even worse. I still had input. I still had say. I still got to lay down some thunder and say, you know what? You need to stop this stuff with the law. Because I'm getting tired of it. You're affecting your mother. You're affecting me. If you want to go and act like a hooligan, make sure that what you do falls only on you and not everybody else. And he finally told his mother something that maybe if I hadn't been here, he never would have said. He said, man, I'm tired of getting in trouble with the law, all these fines, all these court appearances. I'm done with this. And since then, he's been true to it. Thank you, God. I still hate Denver, Colorado. I don't like it here. This is not a warm place to be. But I still go out and get involved. I still try to meet people. I still try to be outgoing, friendly. Because if any place needs it, Colorado does. Colorado was a blue state. We were surrounded by red in the election. And of course, Colorado had to go Hillary. That explains a lot of why I don't like it here. I'll never be able to connect deeply. But when I go to Davy's Chuck Wagon down the street, it's an old 50s retro diner. Sometimes some of the patrons sitting at the bar stools when I order my steak and eggs, they talk to me. And there's a few other conservatives out there that don't like what's going on in Colorado. Born and raised Coloradans. And I've been taking the time to get to know some people, and you start to find that you're not the only one, Pacific. That when I get out there, there are people that like me, that there are people that listen to me, and there's people that I listen to. So God doesn't always answer prayer in the way we want him to. I still maintain, though, that we underestimate the power of our own choices and decisions in life. When we choose to marry somebody, it's easy for us to say, oh, God made this happen. And when the marriage falls apart, did he make it happen? I'm one of those believers that believes that the Bible says, what God has joined together, let not man separate. We don't think about that verse much, do we? It's talking about divorce. But you have to key in on this part, what God has brought or joined together. We have been given a very powerful thing by God, and it's called choice. We have the choice. I hate to say this, but we have the choice to do whatever we want. I can go tomorrow and hook up with somebody and fall so crazy for him and say, oh, we need to get married. Is God in that? Did he join us? Most likely no. That oftentimes we make our choices that have absolutely nothing to do with God. But I've noticed something about myself, and I've noticed something about a lot of the euphorians of our age, especially when it involves romance, especially females. Females fall in love, and the Bible says this and this and this, but their feelings say this and this and this. Well, I know that's wrong, but if loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. Remember the song? I was listening to a song the other day. Torn between two lovers, feeling like a fool, because loving you both is breaking all the rules. When are we going to wake up as an American society and realize that most of what we've done, most of our Christianity, I don't care if you're an atheist or whatever, that most of everything that goes on in American culture has all been based on feelings? And it's killing us. Now, I'm not talking about not having emotion or heart. We're going to get into a video about that because America, it really has lost heart and soul, passion. That the proliferation of porn is proof that people are screaming for intimacy and passion, and yet porn is the wrong way to go about it. It's empty. It's, can I be honest, it's masturbatory Olympics. And you don't have a relationship. And the truth be known, no matter how hot looking the women are on porn, they're not looking at you. They're not going to go out with you. Why would they? They're making all the money they can. They get to live the lives they want and play. In reality, you don't want a porn star. But we lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves all the time. We stuff everything in this hole in our lives that ultimately doesn't fill it. And in spite of my disdain for Denver and most of the people here, I know this is where I was supposed to be. I like my job as a bus driver. Yes, I get tired of bad drivers. Yes, I get tired of mouthy, rude students and the crapola that goes on in my employee lounge. But we live in a fallen world, and no matter where I go, there I am. If it's the East Coast, if it's the Philippines, you're going to find problems. You're going to find problems. I thought I'd update you. Thought I'd bring you up to speed. Been holding down the fort here. And Pacific's feeling an increasing sense of wanting his own man cave. Really wish I could find a house that was built with the old planks and rafters, and you look at the ceiling of rough-hewn lumber, and you go down into your bedroom at night and it feels like a just perfect man cave. I'm looking forward to that idea, and if I don't find that, at least maybe I can incorporate that into a property I buy. Go find the old lumber and the old wood out of a torn down barn and put it in there myself. Be fun to make my bedroom like a pirate ship bedroom. That'd be cool. Oak and timbers and beams and creaky floors and the works. It feels good to be back on YouTube. I feel like it's where I belong. And to anybody that's listening, I don't expect everybody to agree with me. But I do expect people to play nice. And I realize that the bulk of them will not. Don't censor freedom of speech. Because somebody may censor yours someday. And it's not right. There's a plethora of people I disagree with, but I still believe they have the right to the freedom of speech. Calling for the destruction of people and property and death threats? No, that's not freedom of speech. That's an abuse. It just disgusted me that a man in the United States military would stoop to such low. And I hope he got in trouble for that. I hope he got in trouble with his officers. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I do know his channel got pulled down and shut down. And to me, that was awesome. His Facebook page removed all doubt as to who we were dealing with. His little pictures of all his little Legatus figurines, and it was pretty evident. Anyways, it's snowing here in Colorado today. It's supposed to get worse tomorrow. We haven't had a real winter yet, so we'll see what this dishes out. But there's a rumor the Pacific may embark on a voyage to the Philippines this spring. Just a rumor. We'll see. You heard it first here. Stay tuned.